So Nintendo decided to shadow drop Xenoblade 3's DLC story trailer, and I'm going to analyze it right here and now. Stay tuned. The first thing we see is the founder of House Vandom running towards two characters. During this brief shot, we can see purple fog on the sides of the screen. The camera lands for a second as we see Console N with his sword plunged into a civilian. The camera then cuts to Founder Vandham shouting for Niall and Granddad, then pans around to reveal N stabbing Vandham's granddad. We get a close-up of N's Lucky 7 and a brief shot of N looking almost vengeful, followed by a puddle of Granddad Vandham's blood. The camera cuts to a wide shot of N and Granddad, with Matthew seemingly struggling to get to them in time. Right after that, we see a quick shot of pre-Mobius N and M's family photo after the birth of their child surrounded by smoke and embers. The subtext here implies that Granddad Vandham is related to N, possibly his long-lost son or one of his descendants. We see a medium shot of N and Granddad facing off as a greenish-yellow light starts emitting from Granddad's wound. There's a brief moment where N's expression actually changes from vengefulness to surprise. He probably knows what Granddad Vandham is about to do. Just after that is a close-up of Granddad in which his body starts to glow, along with his Kavesi iris, very similarly to how Matthew's did in the teaser trailer. During this scene, Granddad is telling Matthew to take care of Niall. Niall is Matthew's sister in the DLC story. We see another shot of Matthew desperately trying to reach N and his granddad, while Granddad claims that the future is in his hands, sacrificing himself in a massive explosion. Directly after, we see Matthew engulfed in the explosion, along with what looks like a Gormotti woman and several civilians shrouded in light energy. And finally, a wide shot of the city being blown up by Granddad's last-ditch effort to defeat Mobius. Due to the color grading of this scene, as well as the echo from the characters' voices, I have a feeling this is going to be a flashback cutscene of the original city's destruction, which later became known as Hope's Rest. The trailer then hard cuts to a bunch of close-up shots of characters from the upcoming DLC, starting with Matthew, then cutting to a new character. This new character, simply named A, has long silver hair that parts on the side, as well as an interesting red crystal earring. We'll just put a pin in that for now. The next character, named Glimmer, is extremely interesting since she shares some key features with the Aegis, specifically Pyra. On her chest, we can see the Pneuma core crystal. Additionally, the way her hair is styled looks identical to Pneuma's, although she has dark red hair, implying that this is the daughter of Rex and Pyra. Glimmer's outfit also has some Agnian patterns, like the pattern on her hairband and the overall color scheme. It also looks like she's wearing something similar to the Agnian Officer's uniform. After that, we see a close-up of another new character named Nicole, who looks almost exactly like a young Shulk. We see him wearing red and black goggles on his forehead and some heavy-looking equipment on his back. Nicole also has blonde hair styled nearly identically to Shulk's, but has bright green eyes instead of blue, implying Nicole might be Shulk and Fiora's son. Right after that, we finally get to see a close-up of Shulk, and he looks way older than he did in the teaser trailer. While he's still wearing the same clothes as before, Shulk really took a page out of Dunvan's book and grew his hair out way past his shoulders. But get ready for a double whammy, because immediately after we get a close-up shot of Rex, who's since lost his left eyes from when we saw him in the teaser trailer. Given their new designs, the boys finally look like their statue counterparts that were in the city during the main game. After the quick shot of Rex, we get a beautiful title screen of the DLC which reveals the title as Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Future Redeemed. There is a ton to break down in this one image alone, so let's start with the characters. We can see that everyone is standing in pairs, with Nicole and Glimmer on the left, Shulk and Rex on the right, and Matthew and A right in the middle. In this image, we can see that Glimmer, A, and Matthew all have their weapons drawn. Glimmer's weapon of choice seems to be some kind of a pike or ether staff. Obviously, we know that Matthew is a brawler with his red fingerless gauntlets from the teaser trailer, but we also see A wielding a brand new special red sword. The design of the sword looks like a very early version of Lucky 7 with some Monado elements sprinkled in, such as the red blade and the circular window near the guard. It could be that A's sword is the real Sword of Origin, or at the very least a different version of the Monado. While it's hard to see, notice how none of their weapons have the Ouroboros symbol or the flame clocks on them. The only ones who don't really have their weapons drawn are Shulk and Rex, who are just posing near the cliffside. But if we zoom in, then we can see that Shulk actually has a new right arm. This kind of soft confirms a prediction that I had in the first breakdown, that we would see how Shulk loses his arm and how Rex loses his eye. The background of this image is also worth pointing out. At the top, we can see a massive familiar structure surrounded by chains. It's none other than Prison Island. Additionally, some of the ruins around Prison Island look a lot like the structures found in Tantal. These structures, combined with the general environment of the location, could be a merged area between Tantal, Valak Mountain, and Prison Island. The next shot is a quick extreme close-up of Glimmer, followed by a shot of Nicole using his own weapons to punch an Agnian soldier. Nicole's weapon looks like an innovative version of a brawler class in the form of exoskeleton arms that extend and retract when attacking. The technology of his weapon also looks like a Vesi tech, and it seems like he always wears it like a backpack. Based on his character design, it's likely that Nicole is part of a weapons development team like Shulk was in Xenoblade 1. We get a quick close-up on him, and he looks pretty exhausted, likely having fought a bunch of Agnian soldiers beforehand. The shot then changes to an over-the-shoulder angle showing Nicole and Glimmer about to face off. It's here that we can also briefly see that Glimmer's turn mark is on her right shoulder, but what's interesting is that we actually don't know what term she's in. The mark is there, but there are no indications, making it seem more like a regular tattoo than anything. However, if she is in a specific term, I estimate she's between her 8th and 10th term. During this clip, Glimmer says,
"What is that? That weapon can't be a blade."
The trailer cuts to some quick reaction shots of Nicole and Glimmer being interrupted by Matthew, seemingly at the end of their duel, and he comes in swinging, leaping into the air and charging up an attack with his gauntlets before slamming his fist into the ground and releasing a big shockwave of energy. We also see a frontal shot after he leaps up, which shows that his iris glows up anytime he taps into his special power. While Matthew charges Nicole and Glimmer, he says,
"Alright, break it up! You wanna scrap? You scrap with me!"
It's actually very reminiscent of how Guernica interrupted the fight between Noah and Mio, so it seems like breaking up fights runs in the Vandam family. Another hard cut, a member of Mobius is stabbed right through the back by A. Her aim is on point as her sword breaks through the Mobius infinity symbol. We then get an extreme close-up of A, giving us a proper look at her earring. It's the Ontos core crystal, even cased in the same cage as Alphys's choker. It seems like that stab through the back was enough to kill that Mobius, since we can see white motes rising up from its body, which is an Ionia's trademark indicator that they are about to die. As she stabs the Mobius, A says,
"I don't normally stoop to this. Such duplicity is beneath me."
A's speech pattern, hair color, and clothing style seem very similar to Alphys. Coupled with the fact that she has the Ontos core crystal, it'd be more surprising if A and Alphys didn't have some kind of connection to each other. At the end of this shot, we can see the window on A's sword is active with a symbol, just like the Monado. While it isn't easy to see what the symbol is, it's most likely powering up A's Monado to be more effective against Mobius. The next shot sees a city-looking type of group. In the front is a woman with jet black hair and pink eyes who loosely resembles Charla from Xenoblade 1. While she probably won't be a main character or permanent party member, she's more likely to be an important side character or hero like Monica Vandam. She and the other members of her group seem to have cornered Glimmer after either a battle or an ambush. We're treated with an extreme close-up of Glimmer showing off her Agnian iris, however she has an Ouroboros symbol in her eye. The woman from before calls Glimmer the Clockless, which means this is either before the word Ouroboros became well known in Ionius, or this team calls anyone without a flame clock the Clockless. Immediately after that, we hear a man likely from that same group say,
"What do you want to do, Shulk?"
This kinda supports my prediction that Glimmer will be caught in an ambush, leaving Shulk in a situation where he probably has to take her with him. The camera cuts away from Glimmer and pans up to Shulk, and the way the shot lingers makes me believe this is going to be our reintroduction to Shulk post-time skip from the fight with Ontos to now. It's also worth pointing out how tired and pale Shulk looks compared to the last time we saw him, and makes you wonder how much he's really gone through since losing his arm. Right after our reintroduction to Shulk, we see Nicole, Matthew, and Glimmer in battle against Mobius and their Pharaonesses, with Nicole actually protecting Glimmer with his exoskeleton. But just before impact, Nicole and Glimmer get saved by everyone's favorite salvager. We see Rex blocking the Pharaones laser with one of his Aegis swords like nothing, saying one of his famous lines,
"I like your attitude, kiddo."
This is directly followed up with a close-up of Rex's good eye with an expression like he's getting prepared for a fight, and then he flourishes his sword with the camera panning to a low angle. This exact motion from Rex, along with the shot composition, is a recreation of when Rex first summoned Pyra's sword and later obtained the third Aegis sword. While this happens, Rex says another one of his famous lines,
"I'll show him a thing or three."
We get a wide shot of the new cast facing down a Pharaones from each side, Kevis and Agnes, but after zooming in on the Agnian Pharaones, it's clear that only one Mobius is in control of the machines. Also, if we look at the bottom of the frame, we can see everyone from the new cast is present except for Rex, which means the trailer actually shuffled around the events of the cutscenes. But then immediately after that, we see something that's never been done before. The Mobius controlling the Pharaones actually starts merging them together, saying,
"I'll put two Pharaones together to double my power. Chosen or not for a appointed breakthrough."
It's a little difficult to hear, but he says, "I'll put two Pharaones together to double my power." Now, why would a Mobius need to do this only during Future Redeemed and not during the main game? Well, if you remember from the last analysis, according to the plaque on Shulk's monument, his great red sword struck fear into many Mobius across the battlefield. With this knowledge, it's very possible that this Mobius saw Shulk and immediately felt terrified, feeling the need to double his power. It's only then that we see both Veronicas activate, firing their lasers simultaneously at the party and actually landing a hit on Glimmer. Chronologically speaking, this would probably be where Rex makes his grand entrance. Something else I want to also briefly touch on is that during this wide shot, we see the woman with pink eyes standing near Shulk. Since we know the statue for House Reed was modeled after the founder's mentor, it's possible that this woman is actually Shulk's apprentice, the real founder of House Reed. The trailer switches from cutscenes to gameplay, and now we've got a ton more to break down. Starting on the left, we've got our full party on display with Matthew and Rex as attackers, A and Glimmer on support, and Nicole and Shulk as defenders. Additionally, it looks like Shulk will have the most base health since he's in the high 3000s at 90% health, with Rex or Matthew having the second highest health. At the bottom right, we can see some of Matthew's arts, having a break, knockback, and evasion art on X, Y, and B respectively, while his talent art is an AoE that charges all arts on hit. Then in the fusion arts, we see another AoE, a power charge, and a pierce art, but more importantly, the option to interlink has been replaced by the DLC's combat gimmick, tag team combo attacks. Matthew has the AoE burst ability, Monado Crash, which he teams up with Shulk to execute. We then see A's arts, which are way more interesting. 3 of them are references to previous arts from Xenoblade 1. Shaker Edge was Shulk's original talent art before he obtained the Monado. In that game, Shaker Edge dazed the enemy, but in Future Redeemed, it now inflicts Topple. Cross Ray is also another previous art that belonged to Alvis during his short time as a party member in Magna Forest. And finally, A's talent art is called Vision, which grants her a vision of the immediate future. I'm not sure how this will affect gameplay, but it's likely that her talent art will just increase evasion for a temporary amount of time, like how Xenoblade 2's Foresight works. Over on the left, A and Rex can execute a combo attack called Slash Bomb that can inflict Burst. Now it's time for Rex's arts, which I'm the most excited about. During the trailer, he performs a new launch art called Dual Blast, and his returning arts from Xenoblade 2 include his famous Anchor Shot and Double Spinning Edge. The effects of his arts are slightly different from how they were in Xenoblade 2, however. Double Spinning Edge no longer crits from the side, but if his attacks are critical, he'll gain extra art charge. Anchor Shot, on the other hand, still inflicts Topple, however it can only be inflicted from the front of the enemy instead of just anywhere around. Rex's talent art, Infinity Blade, is also a returning talent art from both Xenoblade 2 and Xenoblade 3. In Xenoblade 2, Infinity Blade is Numa's level 4 blade special, as well as the finishing move Rex and Numa used on Ion and Malos. This version of Infinity Blade seems to be taking attributes from Xenoblade 3, which includes AoE, Pierce, and Unblockable statuses. Finally for the arts, we see some Shulk gameplay with a barrage of arts both old and new. Starting with his fusion art, Shulk has a new Monado art called Monado Rage, which is meant to draw aggro from an enemy. For his normal arts, Shulk brings back Stream Edge and Slit Edge, which inflict break and bleed respectively. Interestingly enough, Stream Edge is no longer an AoE attack like it was in Xenoblade 1, whereas Slit Edge evolved into an AoE attack. Shulk's talent art, instead of being a whole selection of Monado arts, is now narrowed down to Monado Buster, which has AoE, Awakened, and Pierce effects. Also, the animation of the attack Shulk performs during his segment looks identical to Dunban's Worldly Slash, using his left arm and all. What's also worth pointing out is that the enemy Shulk is fighting is a fog creature, so it's likely that we'll finally see a payoff of the Fog King setup from Future Connected. The last bit of gameplay we see is Nicole and Glimmer using either their talent arts or their special attacks after a chain attack as the word Hellstream appears on screen. While we don't know what Hellstream is at the time of recording, it's probably a special combo effect that Nicole and Glimmer are able to perform in place of an Ouroboros chain attack, but that's just speculation. The screen fades to and from black, showing Niall sitting somewhere very city-like having an existential crisis about Mobius. We hear her say,
With or without Mobius, nothing will change.
During this clip, it also looks like Matthew is either trying to console her or at the very least just listen and let Niall vent. Due to the lighting of this shot, it's hard to say if this is a flashback cutscene or a sequence that happens before the city's destruction. The next shot shows Niall holding someone in her arms before the person dissipates into yellow motes. It's hard to say if this was someone Niall was forced to kill or only witnessed their death, but either way we see a reaction shot which clearly leaves a lasting effect on Niall. During this reaction shot, we also get a quick yet clear view which reveals a core crystal on her chest, which looks identical to Mio and M's core crystal. This strongly implies that Niall and Mio have a connection. She could either be Mio's ancestor or a descendant of M. The last shot in this batch is an extreme close-up of Niall's eyes, with half of her face being lit up due to an explosion. The lighting of this shot, despite it being so close, is most likely in the same sequence as the destruction of the city we saw at the beginning of the trailer. Niall continues to voice her concerns as we hear her say,
In the end, people always kill people.
This piece of dialogue implies that no matter whose side you are, Agnes, Kevis, or an external party, Ionius has a set rule: fighting in order to live and living in order to fight. The next shot drops an absolute bombshell, revealing the Trinity processor from Xenoblade Chronicles 2, now with all 3 Aegis core crystals, Pneuma, Logos, and Ontos, in their respective spots. The background of the shot looks like it could be the first low orbit station seen in Chapter 10 of Xenoblade 2, and behind the Trinity processor we can see a pillar of light which is most likely the conduit. This is followed up by a close-up shot of the Ontos core crystal where we can see its energy being channeled into the Trinity processor. Additionally, there's some text on the Ontos plaque, and after running it through a translator, the text roughly reads, "Blessed is the man who will find peace and who will cling to wisdom." It's safe to assume that both the Pneuma and the Logos cores have Latin scripts on their plaques as well, however, since we only get a close-up of Ontos, we don't really know what the other 2 read. Given the location and the fact that all 3 cores are present, this might be the cutscene that shows how the 2 worlds merged into Ionius in the first place. During this shot, we hear a voiceover from Shulk saying,
I heard about that from Melia. A gift from Alvis, she called it.
Contextually, it makes sense that he would be referring to the Trinity processor unit, but as we know by now, Monolith Soft is probably trying to misdirect us with different dialogue over the scene. The next scene shows the new party arriving at what Shulk calls the Liberator's base of operation, followed by a few shots of the area. The architecture of the base's structures are all old and mossy, making it hard to say how long the Liberators have been set up for. Additionally, the location looks like a mesh between a town in Xenoblade 2 and New Colony 9 in Xenoblade 1, complete with ether lamp posts, mobile artillery systems, and Colony 9's anti-air battery. The Mechanis sword is also shown in the background, and based on the angle shown, the Liberator's base is probably stationed somewhere in the Cadencia region close to Arethia Sea. Behind the anti-air battery, we can also see some bird-type enemies, so it's possible that location may house a unique monster. Directly after this, we're taken back to the first location shown in the teaser trailer, but this time Zed is beside Shulk and Rex facing down Alvis. He even has his own piece of dialogue saying,
"Is this how badly you wish to erase us? My God."
Alvis was probably the one to create Mobius in the first place, hence why Zed refers to Alvis as his god. But I theorize the reason why Zed is teaming up with Rex and Shulk in the first place is because Alvis most likely threatens to wipe out all life, including Mobius, if he deems them unworthy to live in this new world. Nothing else is really new about this shot. We see Alvis emitting his rift energy like before, and we see the same panning close-up shot that we saw in the teaser trailer. The next thing we see is a big fight where the new party squares off against N on top of Prison Island, which is extremely reminiscent to the fight against Malice in Torna. Matthew uses his gauntlets against N, while A uses her Monado. We can actually see how her sword activates during this fight, with the red blade glowing white, and the window opening up to reveal the symbol just before an attack, though I still can't make out what that symbol is on her sword. N easily defends against the duo, but then we see a quick shot of Prison Island's defense system activating, likely trying to combat N. Directly after, we see Rex and Glimmer attack N in mid-air while using Mithra's sword together. The expression on N's face during this close-up shot probably shows how much he's struggling against the new party. The next shot shows Rex and Glimmer having a chat, almost like a heart-to-heart, and probably inside one of the base's tents, along with another close-up of Rex without all his heavy gear on, which gives us a better look at his scar. We also hear Glimmer say,
But now I'm glad I'm here. Glad I can choose for myself.
She's likely expressing her gratitude towards Rex for possibly freeing her from the flame clock, which explains why earlier in the trailer, Founder Reed called her the Clockless. The scene also demonstrates some of the bond between Rex and Glimmer. And right after this, we see quite possibly the most infuriating frame of the trailer. We see Nicole helping Shulk with maintenance on his new arm, but more importantly, Riku shows up out of nowhere. Now, there's obviously some kind of huge connection that Riku has, but for now, we can just assume that he's either overseeing the maintenance process of Shulk's arm, or he's actually learning mechanics from Nicole. That would explain why he's so technologically skilled during the main game. Shulk looks at Nicole with an expression that conveys pride and content, almost like he's being reminded of his younger self when he was part of Colony 9's weapon development team a lifetime ago. Also, I didn't mention this before, but the length and style of Shulk's hair is more akin to the Architect's hair in Xenoblade 2. The next shot returns to the battle on Prison Island, where this time Shulk saves Nicole from N using his Monado Rex. Despite having a prosthetic arm, it seems that Shulk still favors using his left arm, meaning his new fighting style is going to take heavy inspiration from Dunban's fighting style. The trailer cuts to a close-up of Shulk who looks more determined than ever to defeat N. And while these two scenes are playing, we also hear a voice, assumingly coming from Nicole, saying,
Honestly, just knowing who I'm meant to be fighting, that's the biggest thing of all.
Contextually speaking, it would make sense if this piece of dialogue came from Nicole, since we just had some from Glimmer in the previous scene. Similar to Glimmer with Rex, it sounds like Nicole may be expressing his gratitude towards Shulk. Just after this, we get another shot of A sharing some exposition, but during her piece of dialogue, a flashback plays of the beginning of Chapter 10 from Xenoblade 2, showing off the Beanstalk, Siren in the Artifices, and Klaus activating the Trinity processor to fulfill the birth of a brand new universe. While these scenes are playing, A's line of dialogue is,
Even having built the perfect world for themselves, humans yet desired the beyond.
The obvious context from this statement is that A is referring to previous events of the old world when Klaus reset the universe and created the worlds of Xenoblade 1 and Xenoblade 2, since Klaus's whole motivation to activate the Trinity processor was to save the Earth before it was destroyed. The next shot is extremely confusing as we see a close-up of the Ontos core crystal in its proper place on a character's chest, however it's not Alvis. After a quick reaction shot of Matthew with a shocked expression, it's revealed that Niall is in possession of the Ontos core crystal along with a brand new look. Niall's new appearance somewhat resembles that of Console's N and M, with a mask that covers her eyes along with some matching armor. She also has these little red wing-type pauldrons which are loosely reminiscent of Mechon drones. We hear one final piece of dialogue from Niall where she says,
Matthew, always in Fantasyland.
Now this piece of dialogue is taken out of context as many things are, so we can make a couple of assumptions. The one thing this certainly establishes is that Matthew has a habit of daydreaming and getting too much in his own head. More relevantly, however, this scene may serve as Matthew's rude awakening that Niall has either joined the ranks of Mobius, or taken on a role that requires her to harness the power of the Ontos core crystal. The trailer ends with a fade from black with the title logo of Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Future Redeemed. Now I didn't mention this before, but the Future Redeemed logo is a culmination of all three Xenoblade logos, with the paintbrush strokes from the Xenoblade 1 logo and the flames from the Xenoblade 2 logo. It really is the final piece of the saga that fits the Xenoblade trilogy perfectly. We are shown a release date of April 25th, this upcoming Tuesday in fact, as the trailer comes to an end. Thank you very much for sticking around to the end of the video. If you enjoyed, please leave a like on the video and consider subscribing to help me out a bit. Like the previous analysis, if I missed anything, please let me know in the comments down below. I read every single one. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, I've been your host, signing off.